We certainly have a lot of facilities and facility needs in Montgomery County. We also have a lot of programs and a desire to continue to build programs. And a lot of resources are invested in facilities and programs in this county. So as we think about our high school pathways, we have to think about both the facility and the programming. And that's what we're doing when we think about the new Seneca Valley High School that will open in August of 2020. It will serve not only as a comprehensive high school as it does now, but it will more than double in size and serve as a career and technology center. And we're expanding the way we think about career and technology because the world is changing all the time. All of the different pathways that are so critically important that lead to programs at Montgomery College and other colleges and universities, as well as lead to living wage, high-skilled jobs. We want to be on the forefront of both of those. So whether you choose to go right into college, you choose to go right into a career pathway, or you choose to do both of them as a student who's just graduated, we want to support that. And when we look at these things, we have to think about all the range of jobs. Certainly we need engineers and mathematicians and scientists. We also need people in the arts and culture and people in literature and all of the different fine performing arts, as well as the human arts, if you will. And as an English teacher, I think those are pretty important. I think most people do think they're pretty important. And so when we look at the programs at Einstein, if you've seen their dance program, you know that they are exceptional. If you've seen the communication arts program work at Montgomery Blair High School, if you've seen the work done at Blake High School, you know that it is a signature school for the fine arts and the humanities. And we have a lot of that across the system. So as we think about new schools and new locations, one of the areas that we're thinking about is arts programming. How do we extend and expand, grow that so it's geographically close to all students and that it's available? And so we've put together an exploratory committee to look at that in terms of the Woodward High School reopening. We also have, as I said, the Seneca Valley. We have a program at Blake that we could continue to grow and enhance. We have future high school on the drawing board at Crown. But right now, the work at Woodward is kind of front and center. So we put together this exploratory committee. And I have to say it was a good day when I called Eliot Pfanstiehl, who's the former CEO of Strathmore, and I met several years ago through a variety of different interactions and have tremendous respect for his work. When I read that he had decided to move into a different phase of his life last summer, I called him and said, "Hey, can you help me?" And he said yes. And so we have not only a person in our community and in our state, but nationally who's known for thinking about programming outside the box. So I'd like him to share with our community some of how he's thinking about how to explore this, both as around the facility at Woodward, but also around our entire county. So Mr. Pfanstiehl, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your work on behalf of Montgomery County students. Thank you.
Well, let's be clear, his timing was impeccable. I retired August 31st, and I think he was calling me an hour later. He caught me in that little nexus, if you've ever thought about retirement, where you think, oh my God, there's no purpose for me in life anymore. No one wants me. Even my wife is probably thinking. And there's Jack on the phone saying, by the way, of all the things you've done, I'll bet you've never worked on recreating an arts curriculum in a high school level. And I said, that's the one thing. So he really got me at my weak spot. I also found out quickly that he's an English teacher, but also a theater director. So he has within his blood that DNA that is undeniable. I want to be quick and clear about this, which is we have just begun. I mean, barely begun. And there is no final mandate. There are no decisions made. In fact, there's not even a full committee convened. I have been on a listening tour of MCPS personnel, and I have long known the aesthetic ed people up here. I've worked with them for years and years and years. But what I understand to be challenged with is the ability to put together a new look at arts education, especially at the secondary level. Now, quickly let me say that I have 4 grown children. God bless them, they're all moved out. Every one of them went through arts curriculum, theater, music, band, orchestra, dance, you name it. In fact, my children opened Blake High School as a Blake magnet. Literally, my son was in the first class, and as you know, they opened that school in Stations, and I just kept providing children. So I know whereof I speak in terms of what it has been, and I know those teachers, and I've worked with them. But my life has been on the other side. I'm the guy that employs the artist after they come out of school. That's what Strathmore does. That's what Street 70 did, Roundhouse Theater. And to be on the product output end is a different perspective on what arts education has been and I think could be. So here's a couple of things that I want, once convened, this group to look at. And Woodward, being a possibility for a base, is an extraordinary opportunity. It's also the closest high school to Strathmore, which I might note. But it had nothing to do with it. First of all, I want to re-examine some assumptions. You know, if talent is distributed equally among our population, we can all agree, I think, that opportunity is not. And so the ability to take into arts education in particular talented, promising, creative, but not yet fully formed students is critical. And this is where privilege matters a lot. Because when you get into arts education and arts opportunities, whether it's chorus or band or theater, and you have the ability to not have to work after school, or you have the ability for your parents to pay for private education in the arts, that's a distinct advantage. And we need to find a way to make the equality and the equity and the diversity, access to arts education broader. There is also a basic truth, which is we tend to put our kids into music, theater, dance, arts, so that when they graduate, they'll go join a group, an orchestra, a band, a chorus, a dance company, as if that's the pipeline we're preparing our kids for, to go be part of a conglomerate art form. These days, with that little iPhone in your pocket, you can record, you can promote, you can distribute, you can market your own production. And kids do that more and more and more. They don't need the big studio, and they don't need to be part of an orchestra. In fact, they can compose and perform their own work and have it distributed more widely than most orchestras get. So that is a new vocation for our future arts students, and we need to prepare them for that. We need to teach them how to use that. Well, it'll be bigger than an iPhone, but how to use the electronic media that now connects the world. At Strathmore and at AMP in particular, our nightclub on Rockville Pike, we brought a bunch of fourth graders in there, and we put on the big LED wall screen a living artist from New Zealand and had them take the kids through their studio and then answer the kids' questions. Oh my God, I could never have conceived of such a thing when I was a child in band at Blair High School. And now you can bring the artist into any classroom anywhere, and the kids can interact. That is a whole new world of arts education. And honestly, I think we should be preparing our artists not just to read the score or the script or to pretend to paint the masters. No, we need to teach them to create, to compose, to author their own product. And I think they can do that if we actually encourage that and just slap a piece of music in front of them and say, play that. So there's so much that can be done in arts education. I do know that we're going to need to do one more thing, which is to take professional working artists and get them in the same space with these kids during their education. That's where they will demystify the, what would it be like to do this as a living? Now, very few of them are going to see that as a Bill Gates opportunity. I understand that. But the fact is that they have to not fear going out and being the artist in the world that they were trained to be. To not hear that, yeah, but what are you really going to do for a living? Which most of my people at Strathmore often get from people. What are you really going to do for a living? Well, the fact is that arts is a viable profession. And finally, this is where Jack and I slightly did. I believe that STEM is the way of the future. But if it doesn't have an A in it, if it isn't STEAM, it isn't going to be fully functional. And here's why. What the arts uniquely do is they teach you to envision a preferred, non-existent, but a preferred future. And I would argue that whether you're a scientist or an engineer or a mathematician, that if you can't see a preferred future that doesn't yet exist, how do you get there? And that's uniquely what the arts teach. They teach us to be fearless in going into a preferred future. So I like STEAM. I think it completes the STEM. And I can tell you that at whatever high school this program goes, STEM will be very popular, and it should be, but arts sit right beside it, not against it, and not under it or over there. It's part of it. So I look forward to mixing all of these strange things together. I look forward to finding the right people. I think the reason that the superintendent came after me was I'm not of the system. And I think he wants somebody to bring in outsiders to create this next curriculum and pattern. And so now I am in search of outsiders who can be useful, and they will be drawn from all of those. So with that, is that adequate, sir?
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much.